huge privilege for me to bring the word here this morning. My name's Richard, for those of you that don't know me. And I've had the opportunity to travel around with Pastor Heinrich Titus. I think he's preaching here tonight. And Pastor Anton Mayberg. We've been doing these leadership camps at the different churches. We were in Gauteng last weekend. And I love the way Heinrich always introduces himself. I don't know if he'll do it tonight, but he says, I'm a PK. I'm a pastor's kid. And then there's Uncle Albert and Auntie Nancy. Then he tells us stories of growing up under Uncle Albert and Auntie Nancy. All the beautiful stories of him and his brothers growing up all over the country. And just amazing, just testimonies, Uncle Albert, just to hear how godly, in a godly manner, you've raised your families. But no, I'm not a PK. I'm a doctor's kid. But I sometimes fear that my kids are going to turn into PKs. You would have seen one of them was running around here during the worship, this typical behavior of pastors' kids. But I'll tell you a quick little story. Some of you might have heard it, but about a year and a half ago, it's my 20-year school, not anniversary, reunion. I sometimes get them mixed up, but they're quite different. So it's my 20-year school reunion. And so the invite comes, and it's not organized by the head boy as you'd kind of expect. It's organized by the party gang of back in '94, you know. Isn't it like that? The party animals of 20 years ago, they get the party started 20 years ago again. And so the invite comes out, and they get a little Facebook group going, and it's quite exciting. But you kind of realize it's the Rova Diamante that are organizing this party, because some of the Facebook posts are like, can I bring my girlfriend and my wife, please? And it's like said in jest, but you know, I thought, I'm in for a heavy school reunion, yeah. And so they organize it out here in the sticks in Durbanville, where you can make lots of noise. And I think everybody's going to bring their families along to this school reunion. You know, now I've got 2 kids by then. And I want to introduce them to my family. Only one other family came along. The rest was just the party people of '94. And I kind of knew we were in trouble when they were standing. The men were standing in a circle like this, and they kind of had a beer in one hand like this and a cigarette in the other hand. And my boy knows we're not allowed to smoke. And I was like, he doesn't see many people smoking. And so he kind of walks up to this group of guys and he goes, Papa, kyk, die sisas in hulle monde. That's my first pastor's kid response. My little daughter, she stands at the back here when we worship, and so now she's seen some of the ladies and how they lift their hands and things like this. So on this day, it's a Saturday and it's the Currie Cup final, and the Province is playing against I can't remember who they were playing, but there was this live band that was playing there at this venue, and they were tracking weg there with their dronk likkies. And when this live band pulled away, my little daughter's hand shot up in worship, and she worshipped along to the Province die Currie Cup kom weer. Now those are pastors' kids. Those are pastors' kids. But praise God, I think sometimes we need to get a little bit out of our bubble. And it's actually what I'm wanting to share about this morning, and something C.S. has been touching on in the offering as well. It's about being co-laborers in Christ. Now normally I tend to share around kind of worship-related topics because that's where I'm kind of comfortable with. But I was due to preach about 2 months ago, and I felt the Lord just saying I needed to go into a new topic that I don't normally minister on. And so I was waiting on God, and in one of the staff meetings, I felt the Lord speaking to me, speak on fishing. And I thought, I don't know anything about fishing. And He said, that's exactly the point. And so this morning's message is called Gone Fishing. And it's normally the little punchline that you see on a bumper sticker on the back of a car, or if you've got a holiday house in Hermanus, then you've got a little board up there that says, Gone Fishing. It's the ultimate male dream. Males, is there any fishers out there that just want to say, man, I just want to go fishing. Just leave me alone, me and my fishing rod in my box. Okay, there are not too many, but I'm one of those. Anyway, so it's called Gone Fishing. Now, who remembers, guys, the first fish that you caught? You can go to that next slide quickly. So this is me about 7 or 8 years old. It's my first fish that I ever caught. Ladies, you might not remember your first fish that you caught, the first fish you fried. Ladies, you remember the first fish you fried? Okay, so what we used to do as a family, we used to go holidaying up the east coast of South Africa, and we used to go camping, kind of my mom's cousins and sisters and my grandfather, and we kind of set up like in a whole track in a laager with our caravans there in Port Elizabeth. We kind of book out half the camping site, and we would just spend time together as families. And one of the best things that we did is my grandfather used to take us fishing early in the mornings, 5 o'clock, kind of the sun just coming up. And I remember going with him, and we were kind of, one of my first times fishing, and he was kind of teaching me, and I had no technique or skill. So they used to kind of cast the rod, put on the bait for me, and kind of cast the rod out into the sea. And I'd kind of just stand there, and there were lots of other people also fishing with us, but they weren't recreational fishers. They were actually there to catch breakfast or lunch for the day. They were pretty serious about this business. And here was this 7 or 8 year old. Man, I don't know what happened, but there was this run there's a fish in Afrikaans called the elf. Does anybody know an elf here? Some of you know, I think it's shad in English or something like that. It's a little game fish, but it's a really, really nice tasting fish. And there was this run, and all of a sudden the fish started biting, but they were only biting where I was throwing in my bait. And so this is the first time, and the rod kind of goes down, and it's like, I've got no technique, but I know I've got a fish on the line, and I'm kind of reeling like crazy. And as the fish comes closer, I kind of yank it out of the water through the people to the back there, and they kind of put new bait on for me, and they throw it out for me, and again, pulling it in, same thing. I kid you not, about 5 fish came out that morning, and only 1 or 2 other people were catching fish. So some of these hardcore fishermen were getting pretty irritated with this little guy just pulling out all the fish. And I remember my grandfather, he's just watching this, and he's just got this deep voice, and he's just laughing. His little boy pulling out his fish, standing there smoking his cigarette. I remember it like yesterday. And the best part of all was once you caught your fish, we drive back home, and we kind of had this live-in lady that used to stay with us, and it was before the days of MasterChef, but she was like the original MasterChef. She used to stay with the family, and she used to cook, and then she would cook up this fish. It's about 2 hours old, and like do this perfect little crispy batter. It was just unbelievable eating your fish that you kind of just caught. I think the only fish that I've ever tasted that was better than that was me and my wife were in Zanzibar, and we'd gone snorkeling, and we'd finished snorkeling, and the guy said, "Are you hungry?" And we said, "We're hungry." And he said, "Okay, let's go get some fish. Let's go get some lunch." And he cruised around to one little dhow there, and then he said didn't like that fish, and then he cruised around. Man, you could go and pick the freshest fish that you could. I mean, it's like 10 minutes caught, 10 minutes ago it'd been caught, and we went back onto the beach, and he had his coals there, and his tin foil, and a bit of fresh ginger and lemon. That was probably the best fish I've ever had, apart from my first fish there. Now, who remembers the one that got away? Anybody remember the fish that got away, or do you guys just catch fish first time? I've got a lady's hand up over there. Any guys that want to join her? Okay, I've got a few brave gents up here. Now, the one who got away, the story behind that photo is, this is the day my brother caught his first fish, and I didn't catch anything. Man, and so comes the big photo moment, and I'm so down and disappointed. I'm like, "Dad, I don't have a fish. What am I going to do for the big photo moment?" My dad says, "Just hold your hand like this and hold an imaginary fish." Parents, don't tell your kids to hold imaginary fish. They grow up and then they ask, "What's going on here?" So that's me smiling, imagining I'm holding a fish. Goodness, I can't believe I did that. Anyway, enough about these photos and fishing stories. Let's go to some of the scriptures for this morning. That first scripture there, Matthew 4, verse 18, says, "And Jesus, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw 2 brothers, Simon called Peter and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. Then he said to them, 'Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men.' They immediately left their nets and followed him." Then he walks on to the sons of Zebedee, James and John. Same story. They follow Jesus. They forsook all and they followed him. We pick up this story in a couple of the Gospels. Mark also says, "Then Jesus said to them, 'Follow me, and I will make you become fishers of men. And so here's the background to the story. Christ is kind of just starting out his ministry. It's the beginning of the Gospels, and he's kind of operating solo at that stage, got no team around him. And he starts calling out, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is drawing near. And so how would arguably the most influential leader of all time go and pick the team that the newspapers later on would call the planet shakers, the ones who have literally come to turn the world upside down? How would that leader go and pick that team, that eagle team, that winning team, that A team? Where would he go and look for them? And in my mind, I would think Christ would go, man, he'd go to the Harvard of Israel. He'd go and look for the Zuckerbergs, for the Bill Gates, for the Elon Musks, the movers and the shakers, the ones that have literally turning the world, that have got potential, that have got the business acumen, that have got the training and the skills to actually have a massive impact on the world. That would be my take. He'd go and look for them there. And so Christ goes and picks his team not where they are educated and influential and successful people. He goes down to the docks. He goes down to the fishing docks. And I'm thinking, God, why? Why would you go and pick the team that needs to speak to thousands of people and turn the world upside down? Why would you go down to the fishing docks? Why to the fishing docks? I mean, remember the fishermen, they're the people that renowned for having foul mouths. They're the people that spend their money on dubious activities when they come back to shore. This is not kind of the first place I would go and look for my team to go and change the world with. Yet Christ goes and he picks his team down at the docks and say, why did Jesus go and pick fishermen? I thought about this for a while, and I thought the only reason is because they knew how to catch something. And where Christ was going, he was going to do a lot of catching. He was going to do catching of men. He was going to make fishers of men. So, how do we catch fish and men for Jesus? The first thing that I believe is with a lot of patience. There's some little cartoon there. Must please excuse some of the images here. These are the best ones I could find on the internet. Has anybody heard of as jy gaan hengel? Does anybody know what it means to go and hengel? So my take about hengel is when you go and fish all day and you don't catch anything, but it's still nice. So sometimes that happens. Sometimes we go and we got our rods out there the whole day, and we've at least maybe got a cooler box to keep us company with. But you're out there the whole day and you're kind of fishing and you don't catch anything. And so sometimes fishing takes a lot of patience. And growing up, my grandfather taught us how to fish, and he taught us how to hunt. And he would love it if you were out the whole day. He would send you out with your gun or your rod, and you'd kind of go out for the whole day. And then he'd love it when he'd come back kind of as the sun was setting. And he'd love it if you tell him, you know what, grandfather, I didn't catch anything today, but it was still nice. That was his first prize. If you could go out there and you could just enjoy the veld, you could enjoy being out in nature and the sounds, or being on the rocks and just experiencing nature. And even if you don't come back, you come back and he says, how was it? And you say, it was amazing. Patience. And so fishing for people will be the same. Sometimes it's not just going to happen on the day that you think it's going to happen. Sometimes it will take some patience, We were with Pastor Dirk-Jan and Renee. They're the couple that have just planted Shofar Utrecht in the Netherlands. We were with them about two months ago, and he just shared the story of how they came into the neighborhood in which they stayed there near Utrecht, and they were kind of, they moved into this block of flats, and they were kind of expecting kind of the neighbors to welcome them, and maybe a cake or some kind of tart or something to say, welcome, you're from South Africa, welcome to the neighborhood. But Dirk-Jan got something wrong, and he didn't know that he was getting this wrong. And so instead of hoisting up his few little furniture with an expensive crane, kind of 3 stories and through the balcony, he did like most South Africans did, and he kind of you got somebody and they just carried it up the stairs. And there must have been one or two tiny little scuff marks against the wall or something like that. But man, did these neighbors get upset. And they got letters of complaints, I don't know, from the body corporate and from the who knows who. There's no warm welcome. There's just a complaint. Don't you know that we don't carry furniture upstairs? You hire a crane here in the Netherlands, And I can just imagine that he shares the story just, and kind of just being disappointed. And Derkan, being the saint that he is, I think he went and bought some paint and he went and painted the whole place out despite there being one tiny little mark. And I think he cleaned the floors and everything. He like really went, not the extra mile, but the extra 5 miles. No response, quiet, no neighbors coming to say hello, nothing. Eventually, I think it's about 2 or 3 weeks in, there's a knock on the door. And it's the neighbors, and they say, okay, we see what you've done. Can we come over for, just a snack a bit later on? And Derkan's like, yes, of course, we'd love to meet somebody here. And so they come over for a snack, and the culture there apparently is you come over for a snack, and then just before it gets supper, then you eat the snack, and then you kind of go home. It's not really that cordial to stay on later, because then it becomes supper time, but these people just wouldn't leave. And so Renee says she eats all her snacks, and Renee eventually says to you, I must tell you, I've got no food for you tonight. And they says, don't worry about the food. We just want to talk to you. And so they spend, I think, till late in the night, just speaking to these neighbors who were so offended with him. But by Derkan's patient actions, just going the extra mile and taking patience, these people eventually say to him, please tell us about what you are doing. Derkan says, we're planting a church here. They want to know all about a church, and they start asking them about God, and they start ministering to their neighbors who 3 weeks ago were writing letters of complaint. Sometimes people reaching out and fishing for men and women will take patience, and it's a process. This process is called relationship, building relationship, and sometimes you'll need to take steps like that. So fishing for people and men, it takes patience. Secondly, go to the next slide there quickly. We will make mistakes when we're fishing for fish and when we're fishing for men. So to take you back to my fishing stories, with my terrible technique of kind of yanking the fish out through the people, I remember one day, I think the fish was off already, but one of those hooks landed up in my grandfather's calf. I remember it like yesterday. It didn't go extremely deep, but it was like in the skin, and it kind of stuck there, and there was kind of like this ooh on the rocks. Everybody, this hushed silence. What is this grandfather going to do with this little boy who's just put one of these hooks in his calf? And my grandfather just quietly looked at his leg like this, and he kind of just took the hook out, and he said, "Dis okay, my seentjie. Vis nog bietjie meer." Just patiently dealing with my mistakes. And so sometimes we will make rookie mistakes when we're fishing for fish and when we're fishing for people. And I think some of you will know what I'm talking about. When you try and reach out to somebody, and it's one of the first few times, you will say stuff that's probably going to offend them or going to not be the appropriate thing to say. But this is the amazing thing. God makes us fishers of men. And so we need patience. We will make mistakes, which brings me to my next point. So you've got to know your gear when you're fishing for fish and whether you're fishing for people. So sometimes you need different rods for different rivers. Now, who remembers that movie, A River Runs Through It? I expect some of the more mature folks here to, wow, am I the only one that watches movies here? Okay, I've got a few hands up there. Okay, so you remember the movie, The River Runs Through It? And it's still Brad Pitt, beautiful cinematography, and it's there, I think in the state of Montana, one of those beautiful, massive rivers, and just full of, trout, and just these beautiful scenes of him kind of, fishing there in the sunset or the sunrise. And so we all went through a bit of a river runs through it phase here in South Africa as well. I was first year at Wilgenhof in Resia, and I remember borrowing one of my friend's rods, and I'd stand there on the lawns of Wilgenhof, and I'd be practicing my casting like this. But I was a really bad fisherman. I think I only caught one fish in the Eerste River, and it was a tiny little thing like this that we had to release. But what I did realize about fly fishing is that it's very different to the type of fishing I used to do with my grandfather. Here it became a whole lot more technical. So I told my dad, Dad, I'm into this fly fishing thing, and he bought me a book. If you go to a slide, there's a slide with, I think it's called Catching Trout or something like that. And I remember kind of reading this book and kind of getting into it, and I just realized this is not catching off the rocks. This is technical stuff. And so I was kind of working through this book, and I was speaking to one of my friends, Greg. He's in the band with me, and Greg, he's a hardcore fly fisherman. And he belongs to a society called the Piscatorial Society. It's a bit of a dodgy word, but it's actually a word for people that belong to a society that catch fish together. And so you can actually go to Cape Town. You can become a member of this society. Anybody a member here? Okay. That's perhaps a good thing. And so you can go and catch fish. If you go through the tunnel there at Worcester, you can go what they call and book a beat. And so you get a section of the river, it's called a beat, and you book your beat, and then you go there for the day, and it's very, very technical. You've got a thin little river like this. It's not like the river runs through it where there's a massive river. It's a thin little river, and there's bushes all along the side, and you got to put this fly has got to go kind of perfectly kind of go in the center between these bushes, otherwise it lands up in the bushes. It gets really, really technical, and you've got to know exactly what size the trout are in the river, because that depends, that influences the thickness of your line, and sometimes they're flowing downstream, sometimes they're coming upstream, and the shadows that are involved. It gets seriously, seriously technical. And sometimes fishing for men and women will be the same. And you'll think this is going to be an easy catch, and it's not. And so I'm on the flight to Utrecht about 2 months ago, and I thought, let me bring this word here to them for the first time. And of course, I don't know anything about fishing or fishing in the Bible. And so I'm reading all my fishing scriptures, and I got them there, and I kind of printed out all the New Testament fishing scriptures. And I'm reading my fishing scriptures there on the plane. I'm kind of waiting for the meal, and the air hostess comes there. And you know, the air hostess normally says, would you like beef or chicken? Chicken or beef? Except this night she says, beef or fish? I'm like, fish. I'll have some fish, thank you. I've got my fish there, and I'm eating my fish, and I'm reading my fishing scriptures, and I think, this is cool. And so I decided to read through the Sawubona or the In-Flight magazine there, and I kid you not, the main article, the feature article, is commercial fishing in South Africa. I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm reading about all this commercial fishing, how they fish here off the West Coast, and you know, how they catch kind of 9 tons of fish in 2 hours between 300 and 700 meters deep, and they got to get the fish out quickly, otherwise they bruise. And it's kind of a whole thing. I'm like, God, this is so amazing. I've got my fishing sermon, I'm eating my fish, and I'm reading my fish article. It's like, it's going to be so amazing when I one day go and fish for you. And I feel the Holy Spirit just challenging me. It's time to start fishing. Speak to the people on your left and your right. And I look to my left, and praise God, this lady's reading one of these journals that you buy at Kum Books, you know. So I kind of, God, she's obviously in the boat. This fish is caught. I'm like, I'm off the line there. And I look to my right, and it's kind of a young African executive, and he's kind of fallen asleep. And I'm like, okay, God, I'll maybe do some fishing for you just now. And then he wakes up. I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, I need to actually practice what I preach. And so I strike up a conversation. I'm like, you down for business? He said, yeah. And praise God, we just like hit it off, me and this guy. And he's an amazing guy, electronic engineer. He's done his MBA in UCT, and he's in the telecom space. And I used to kind of do research in that area as well. So we had this amazing conversation going for probably half an hour. And then he asked the inevitable question, so what business are you in? And I'm like, help me, Jesus. I'm in the church business. Oh, okay. How does that work? And so, I'm like, I just start witnessing to this guy, and I can see he's a really, really, warm, friendly guy. And we start talking, and eventually I start asking him, So do you go to church? He says, yeah, he used to go to church a long time ago. I say, you don't go to church anymore? He says, no, I don't believe in church anymore. And I said, oh, okay, what do you believe in? He says, I believe in science. Man, and then I started having this technical conversation with him, and he's got all these theories and stuff I've never even heard about. And I'm like striking, and I'm putting my hook down here, and then I'm putting my hook down here, and I'm trying this bait and frantically trying to catch this fish and reel this fish in, and this fish just will not be caught. And I realized in that moment that I don't have the rod for this river, that I don't have the fly for this fish, that I don't have the worldview. I'm not read up enough to challenge this guy's worldview. I don't have enough in my toolbox. And so people, you will meet bright people out there that have got strong opinions, that have thought through a couple of questions. It's not just about you think you're going to witness to them. They're going to, yes, I want Jesus, let's go for it. They're going to have, hardcore backgrounds and detailed opinions of what they believe. And I just realized that when I come back to South Africa, I need to do a few courses. I need to upskill and get a few new rods for different rivers. And so we're going to be speaking about worldviews at Convergence. Pastor Fred's going to be ministering to you about this. But I challenge you to start, when you go fishing for men and women, to know what the atheists believe, what the Hindus believe, what Islam believes, what Scientology believes, what the evolutionists and the creationists, what they argue about, so that you can hold your own in those conversations. And man, it was bad for me to walk away and to know that I'd witnessed to this guy, but I could not reel that fish in. I could not reel that fish in. And so I know I've got some work ahead of me. So sometimes fishing for Jesus is technical. You've got to know your gear. Next one there quickly. Fishing is a team sport. You can go solo with one rod and you can catch a few fish. But look at this. Luke 10. After these things, the Lord appointed 70 others also and sent them 2 by 2 before his face into every city and place where himself was about to go. Then he said to them, the harvest truly is great, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. Go your way. Behold, I send you out as lambs among the wolves. Sometimes we think Jesus only had 12 disciples. The word actually says there were 70 others also that went out in teams. So there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with somebody.